We can start with you, Sam. Probably you can give us an introduction of why is it that you see workflow as something that um, it's important and it should be addressed by J Billing.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you. And apologies, I missed my title, but Director of Business Development here at JBillion. And I'll move on to this first slide. And through various conversations with both current customers and prospects, we've learned a lot about number one, what's needed from a billing platform, but number two, what's missing from the current kind of JBillion iteration. I would say when it comes to what's needed from a billing platform, it really comes down to a couple key factors of why companies are switching billing platforms. And
Right.
I'd say the biggest one is that we're moving, for the most part, from an asset-based economy to a services-based economy. And kind of that movement from how these companies or how these enterprises are going to market with their different products and services and how they're trying to monetize their customer base is putting a lot of strain on traditional billing platforms. So, along those lines, what that means is it has affected everything from pricing. So going from, a standard pricing catalog to, custom pricing or having a wholesale model. So really trying to grow the breadth of the customer base, going from kind of a local or regional implementation where the billing's a little bit more basic, having to deal only with one currency or only one region, one tax code, going to global, single product to multiple products and services, and really a focus on innovation. And then, really, I mean, I'm using on-prem in-house to kind of a cloud-based, but that's really to signify moving from an agile or moving from kind of a set-in-stone architecture to a much more agile and flexible architecture.
So we have a number of factors that are forcing companies to change their business models, to react more quickly to what customers want, and obviously this affects the systems that are behind and the processes that basically make all this happen for companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, billing is one of the crucial systems of any business. I mean, if you can't collect revenue, you're kind of out of luck. But with this shift to kind of agile, flexible, scalable innovation, going from asset-based to service-based, what we've seen is billing is really now a company-wide decision. And really everyone at the company has a stake in billing. It's no longer kind of a back office solution. Billing is truly moving from the back office to the mid office and is even touching on the front office. So what that means is, right, everyone from sales to marketing, business intelligence, finance, accounting, product innovation, any kind of group within an organization or an enterprise needs to be at least on some level involved with the billing system.
So, for example, before, if we had a new product, someone would go to talk, maybe a product manager, maybe marketing would talk with the person that understands the billing system, and that guy would say, well, that will take us a couple of months to set up a reasonable price or the price that you want, maybe without these other things that you wanted, that discount or that special price for launch or whatever. So there was a kind of like a disconnect between some areas of the company and those backend systems, but they made it happen because things were not that complicated. Now, when things get more complicated, you really could use that person, that product person, to be able to enter that product directly and model that price directly, and not need to talk with a backend guy and a bunch of developers on how to get this done.
Yeah, exactly, right. And back 5, 10, 15 years ago is a much more kind of, obviously there was still complexity in pricing model, still complexity in product design, but it was very much a singular kind of workflow where I have a new product. I'm going to go to a single person in the back office that's touching billing so that they can get this product on the billing system. Separately, I'm going to go talk to marketing. Separately, I'm going to go talk to sales. Separately, I'm going to go talk to finance and accounting. Obviously, there's kind of back or platforms involved with every single aspect or every single group within an organization. And what we're seeing now is there's a huge importance on making sure that all of these systems are talking to billing, are integrated into billing, and instead of now kind of a singular process flow that needs to be followed, there's multiple steps in the process that can be automated if you have a central repository, or in this case, what we're really talking about, which is workflow.
Right. And look, I can only speak from experience when I say that all this misintegration between systems, and also maybe it's not the right term, but integration between systems and just people, on how do we go about getting something done in a company where you need to the input and output of various systems and various departments could be like here CRM and billing and finance or accounting, ERP, and who knows what else. Well, all that need to be integrated somehow, and that means a big effort initially. And of course, we have companies that only do that, right? System integrators that they just do integrations, and then it's quite hard to maintain.
Yeah, and not only with integrations, but how do these systems talk to one another? How do these systems talk to every single manual process that's in the flow? And that's really kind of a core component of all of this, and kind of one of the reasons we're here. But I mean, the point is, it's very much no longer a singular process. There are demands on billing systems that are putting demands on other third-party systems, and what businesses are trying to do is they're trying to get products to market faster. They're trying to merchandise those products more effectively, and they're trying to enable their sales force to really go target a segment market or put a specific plan or put a specific price against a specific industry or specific geography. And all of that is taxing the billing system.
The billing system, potentially other systems. Imagine companies running, I don't know, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but just just because it's an icon, companies running on SAP, and there you go. Now you need to launch a new product or put together a new bundle, a new pricing structure. Well, you're going to have to whip that system pretty hard to get that done, and the integrations between that system and other systems can be quite tricky if your new product involves that. I think that we see quite often a bottleneck um, when it comes to letting a company be agile and do things quickly. We see a bottleneck in those back systems, and billing certainly one of them in those legacy billing systems. Which I want to just point out one quick example, which is the kind of example that every company has, which is let's sign up a new customer. If you're a utility, if you're a telecom, or if you're a SaaS company, um, if you are a media company and you sign up a new customer, what is it that this represents when it comes to your backend systems? And I'll pick just one simple example that is just 2 lines. It's really not that hard. Sign up a customer from the website. So we assume that the company has a website where customers can go and put their data there. Username, first name, last name, credit card. Pick a product or a plan from just a few options. Very simple. Then we need that account to be created in billing and in CRM, but in CRM only if it's an enterprise customer, so not for residential. And after that, well, we need to send someone to complete the installation. This could be like cable or phone, whatever, or it could be a connection of a utility, gas, electricity, who knows. But let's assume someone has to go, and once that is done, okay, now we need to activate that account in the billing system and send the first invoice. So look, would you say this is a very strange use case?
It's not every single company has this use case.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like you said, it's fairly basic, but and I think you're going to be going through the flow here quickly. But thinking about kind of all the dependencies that are required just for this single use case. I mean, we're talking about what 4 or 5 different integrations and 5 different steps that ideally you could automate. And ideally you could automate this and put this into a single system or something similar to that.
Well, that would be ideal. Let me show you what I think most companies have today. you know. And this is super simplified, but it just shows if you see these little arrows, you see where the data comes from and where it goes. We have a website, okay, so that's great. Now the website needs to talk to the API of the billing system, so we get that create the account in the billing system part. Now maybe the billing system then calls CRM. Okay, maybe that's the case. If that's the case, we will need to put some logic in the billing system on when to call CRM and when not, because we only want enterprise accounts to be in CRM according to this example. So we have sprinkled a little bit of logic that is not billing logic. It's like sort of integration logic, but now it's all of the same in the billing system. Maybe it could be in the website, but still would be kind of bizarre that we have integration logic there. And we have the website calling an API for the billing system, the billing system calling CRM. Then we need a manual step. And now things get a little bit more odd, right? Because we have to dispatch someone to do the installation. And how do we do that? Maybe we can send an email, and maybe we can have some kind of a system that deals with manual tasks, but it would need to be yet another system in the mix, and we will need to integrate with that system. And well, when this person is done his or her installation, well, that person would need to log into the billing system, activate the account, hopefully not make any mistakes. That also means that this person will need to be trained to access the billing system. And last but not least, the billing system needs to understand that when an account is active, it should generate immediately an invoice, not wait for a billing process at the first of the month or whatever happened. So simple case, complicated solution, and lots of integration points, not an ideal situation. And come to think of it, it's not the only workflow that you're going to see in companies. You're going to see all sorts of others, like change of plans for upgrade and downgrade, create a new product. It might touch on all sorts of systems, have X number of manual processes, and all that subject to change at any given time. And someone needs to understand where that integration is, go make a tweak, or maybe we did an upgrade of a system, the billing system, that broke an integration, go fix that. So just imagine in our previous example, if there's a company with a few tens of thousands of customers, so I'm not talking a massive company here, and someone tried to log in, no, someone tried to sign up from the website and didn't work, and then they call customer service. What do you think will happen then? How would that CSR deal with the call?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult, right? Because then it's all about where is the information, where is this, what step of the process are we in, and how is that CSR supposed to acquire that information? If there's already a broken integration, that CSR is going to have even more trouble than they originally were going to have, or they need to be trained in both the billing system, the CRM system. They need to understand who the dispatcher is if there's a system there. So to your point, I mean, I think even a simplistic example like this really shows kind of the strain or kind of some of the challenges that businesses are facing when it comes to setting up billing processes or business processes, and all of the links that can be broken, all the integrations that can be broken, all the integrations that can be done, and how that all ties back into billing. And I think it's exactly what we're trying to solve, what we're trying to help with here at JBilling, and one of the reasons that we're kind of designing this new workflow or business process management tool.
That's right, because it's not just the technical people that will have difficulties, but also all areas of the company. And I mentioned the CSR because it would make the life of those people quite difficult. You need visibility on where each specific instance of a workflow, and I just not say that the whole system, but each individual example or instance of the workflow for each customer. Where are they?
Exactly. And I know we have this, but what does kind of the workflow or the BPM look like, and how does it help solve kind of that issue? I mean, it should automate a lot of these processes, but it should give a lot more clarification, a lot more flexibility around creating these rules, agile to kind of grow these rules or change these rules over time, but visibility into where the process is in the steps.
It simplifies it and it makes it more visible. And here's an example. This is the same example, okay? So what we're going to try to do is move that workflow logic from being sprinkled across various systems, and potentially part of those systems is just people knowing what to do, hopefully, and moving that to a system, we call it BPM, business process management. That's where we're going to put two things: the logic of every workflow, plus all the integrations that are required for that to happen and end happily. So let's explore this one. We have the website. That's where we start. We get the sign up form. We have the last name, first name, credit card, and the website tells the BPM system, I just sign up a customer. So the website doesn't need to know what happens next. It doesn't know if CRM is involved, if billing system is involved. It doesn't need it. It just needs to know that something important happened and BPM needs to be notified. Now BPM has logic inside, and I put just a little diagram there just to represent a generic piece of logic, and understands, oh, well, we just sign up a customer. The first thing I'm going to do is create an account in the billing system. So that integration from BPM to billing system needs to be in place, of course, otherwise this wouldn't work. But billing system doesn't need to be integrated with the website or with CRM. The next thing we're going to have is run some logic in the BPM where we identify, is this an enterprise or a residential customer? And if it is enterprise, we'll create the account in CRM. And again, we need an integration from BPM to CRM. But we just know that all integrations, or most of integrations, are in the BPM system. So I don't need to go find out where is it, how come this account showed up in CRM. Was it the billing system that created from an API, or the website, some other system, or someone manually? I don't need to wonder all that. The BPM then knows about manual processes. This is really important because it makes those steps, those tasks, a first-class citizen in a workflow. It's not something that you kind of wing, with an email or something like that. No, this is a new instance that someone would get assigned. Oh, you need to install, and we have a timestamp of when that happened, who got that assigned, when that person went, and a history of all that task. And that person then can go to the BPM and say, okay, I'm done. I got it done. It's installed. So the BPM will take care of activating the account in the billing system. It knows which account. It also can say, this is being activated because Peter, the installer, got the job done on this date at this time, and maybe some comments that Peter entered. So all that information can be propagated to the right systems. Can activate the account, and then it can tell to the billing system, by the way, I need an invoice generated because the new customer of this type of new customer potentially requires an immediate invoice. Unlike others that might require an invoice later. Who knows? Depends on the product you're selling. So this is looking much better.
Yeah, and I think one thing to note here, right, is that steps 2 through 4 can all happen at the same time as well, which is really, really valuable to an organization because that's saving many links within the steps of this happens first, then that, and now they're kind of dependent on one another, but they also happen in tandem and happen independently of one another as well, which is hugely valuable. I mean, it's really putting a lot more kind of sense and organization within every single kind of process or kind of managing the processes that need to be undertaken within a enterprise or a company of any size.
That's right, and it makes the life of a lot of people much more simple because instead of having integrations happening all over the place and sort of out of control with each new process, someone would say, well, now we need to integrate this system with that system. And there you have another line in a big diagram. Then someone needs to change something and doesn't know where to go change it. So it gets totally out of control. Lacks visibility from those actors that interact with the system, CSRs, people installing, but also finance. Imagine the people that want to know why is it that we have all this amount of people in 90 days late in their payments? Well, maybe something went wrong with some process, but and that's why they are not paying. So we need visibility across the whole enterprise. Now, if we have a centralized workflow management system, that now everybody knows where to go, and everybody knows where each instance of a process is, and how many run, when, who did what, which systems were involved. And if we need a new one, we need to launch a new product, and that product means provisioning a new line in a backend system, in a network telephony system, or we need to do a connection with a meter, or all that can be still orchestrated from the workflow system. So orchestration of processes and centralization of integrations, and then distribution of activities across various systems and people, all those things we can just solve with this type of system.
Really, really interesting. I mean, I think you touched on it really well there, right? I mean, it's truly kind of the centralization, but also kind of the brain of how not only systems interact, but also how people interact with those systems, and also how people interact with other people amongst
That's right.
interdepartment or
Very
intercompany.
important.
One thing that I don't think we've really touched on yet, and a question that I have is, why is billing kind of such a logical place for this workflow to happen, or this business
Right.
process?
Why JBL is getting to workflow after all?
Exactly. I mean, as you know, a billing company, we understand the importance of billing, right? It's kind of central. We understand that billing is central to any business. It's sending out the invoice and getting paid on that invoice. So, I mean, but when it comes to workflow, I mean, why are we investing so heavily in this, and why do we see it as such a core feature for the platform?
Well, the short answer would be billing knows about the customer balance, and that is a very, very, very important piece of information for every company. But there's more than that. Billing knows about the product catalog. All the products that are currently being sold by the company, billing needs to know about them, and needs to know about how much do we charge for them. So all the pricing structure needs to be known to billing somehow, at least when it comes to JBilling. I know some a little bit more legacy billing systems might not know about the price, and they just get called with a cooked price, but that's not the case of JBilling. We know about all the pricing structure is in the billing system. Also, in the case of JBilling, we do full payment processing, PCI compliant. That is very important as well, because we know who paid, how. Credit card, check, manual, somehow cash. Well, we know how people pay, and we know who paid late and who pays on time. And keep in mind, lots of the processes that companies really care about somehow get triggered by something related with billing. New invoice, new payment, non-payment when there should be a payment, like an invoice that is getting late. All those things are classic triggers of important workflows for companies. So let's take a look to other options, because we thought about it. It's not like we just jump into new areas just because. But customers have been asking, by the way, how do you orchestrate between this and that, especially around provision a new when billing knows that someone paid, especially a new customer account. Billing typically is in charge of provisioning whatever service that is, connecting a phone line, assigning a phone number to a specific service, or the other way around, disconnecting a service. So that because billing knows all that, it's a pretty common place to start. Now, of course, there's standalone systems that do BPM, right, and pretty good ones at that. The problem with that is, well, so it's not really doesn't need to be a problem, but there's drawbacks to having a standalone system that just does workflow. First of all, it's going to be only good as the number of integrations that system has with the other systems that you need to orchestrate flows. So if you need your workflows involve billing and involve CRM and involve your backend office network, well, do you have the right connectors for that VPN to do that? So hopefully yes, or at least it should be easy to extend so that integration can be put in place. Well, but if you have another system, it's yet another system to maintain. You have to keep up with security patches. You have to keep it up and running in some server or something. You need a sysadmin for that, and you need to educate and just train your staff to use it because if everybody needs to have access and have visibility to workflow, well, everybody needs to learn how to use it. Plus, well, you need yet another set of username and password. So you have your email, your computer, your CRM. You might end up with like 10 of those. So not a huge deal, but those are the cons. Now, CRM is not an unusual place to put some kind of workflow, especially oriented around sales, and might be perfectly fine to do that. But when you go beyond that and you want to start automating other areas where you need to know when and how people pay, when are the customers supposed to pay, how much, and when is it that they are late? Well, if you're going to have CRM orchestrating and triggering those kind of workflows, it's going to have to learn how much people owe. And that means that the CRM will need to integrate somehow directly with the billing system or some kind of payment processing system, whatever it is in the back end. So it's not a natural place to put all workflows. Maybe sales-related workflows. It depends on the CRM too. Now billing, and that's where we what we are doing is, well, we take advantage of knowing the balance, knowing the billing history, knowing the product catalog, and already having natural integration with a number of backend systems to provision phone lines, to provision also services like a voicemail, for example. We've done a lot of projects where someone signing up to a product or plan meant talking with 5 different systems to get some kind of connections or enabling services.
It makes total sense, and I think what you just touched on there is a really good segue into learning a little bit more about how we're thinking about this workflow and how we're putting this workflow together. Because as you mentioned, right, we're experts at already doing these integrations. We're experts at maintaining these integrations, and we understand how the billing platform has to interact with these integrations or speak with these integrations, and also some of the manual processes involved. So with that being said, how is JBilling or how are we thinking about this workflow module? What have we done to date? And how are we putting this together to kind of solve some of these complexities or issues that our customers are having?
Well, we understand the complexity of building software from scratch since we've done it. And we also understand that a workflow system needs a fairly different UI than a billing system. Because a billing system, often you have forms and tables with data and reports and a lot of that, but you don't have the kind of client or desktop software where you can drag and drop things and the visuals of a nice UI that is not server dependent. So we wanted the all the good things of a standalone system, but without the drawbacks. And leveraging on our open source roots, we went out and take a look to what's out there that maybe we can leverage. And we scouted and tried a number of open source BPM or workflow systems, and eventually found that there is a really great system out there with a certain level of maturity to give us confidence, called Activity, and is built on the same technology stack that JBilling. So they use Java, they use Spring. They are on an enterprise platform just like JBilling. But of course, Activity is just on a standalone system. It will have all the drawbacks that I just mentioned before. So we took Activity. Since it's open source, we get access to the source code, and we added the 300 plus integrations with the API of JBilling. So from Activity, you can call any API of JBilling and basically pretty much replace the UI of JBilling just calling workflows. However, that's not what you want to do. What you really want to do is have something a little bit higher level where you can say, just create a customer. If that means 2, 3, 5 calls to the JBilling API, okay, well, that you don't want to have that level of granularity. So we created a new layer of high-level processes that encapsulate the number of API calls to JBilling and really simplify how a user would go and put together workflows that look like a business workflow, not a low-level technical workflow. We also added access control extensions, so you don't need to log into JBilling, then log into Activity, as if they were two different systems. Activity is great when it comes to extending its authentication mechanism. So we just integrated both systems, and when you are logged in JBilling, you are also logged in to the workflow side of JBilling run by Activity. Now, this alone would be really good to just orchestrate all sorts of billing tasks and billing-centric workflows, like provisioning, for example. But of course, we also need to include other systems into the mix. And this is something that is going to be an ongoing effort. As we see new systems that make sense to integrate, our customers ask for us, or new projects involve different CRMs, different ERPs, or who knows what, we can easily integrate with them. We have lots of experience. At the beginning, and for the demo we're going to show today, we're going to show you Salesforce integrated with JBilling and integrated with Activity as part of a JBilling workflow.
And really, really interesting and great to hear. I think not starting from complete scratch has a lot of benefits, and the ability to customize this workflow to fit, how JBilling's architected, having the 300 plus API calls is such valuable. It is so valuable. So really looking forward to getting a quick demo of the platform here.
Well, and that's something that Juan can help us with. And for that, I will make Juan the new presenter. Juan, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Emiliano.
So let me make you presenter, and what we're gonna, what I'm going to ask you, Juan, is give us a sense of the effort involved in creating this new module for JBilling, which is, definitely a massive amount of new functionality that is somehow outside the core of billing functionality.
Sure, of course. Well, mainly we're split it like in three fronts for the whole development. First of all, there is one team working on all the integration with JBilling. That's what you mentioned about already integrating the workflow module with all the API methods that we have available in JBilling, over 300. Then we have a team working on other integrations. For example, in this case, the one that we will be seeing in the demo, it's the Salesforce integration. Yeah, so the workflow model with external applications. And then we had someone else working specifically in the single sign-on development. Yeah, that's what you mentioned about only going into one system. You don't have to go to a different application or URL to go to the workflow module. You just log into JBilling. There's going to be a link, and that will take you to workflow by using the same roles, permissions, and everything. Yeah, everything is handled in JBilling. So the work, I would say, it hasn't been that difficult. it had its complexity, but it's looking good, and you will see it working in just a few minutes.
Great. So Juan, I can see your screen now, and I can see that this is the UI of JBeating workflow, and I can see already a diagram there, which basically maps to the example I was just explaining a few minutes ago. Plus, I see on the left dozens of subflows that really talk to me from a billing point of view, like create plan, create product, delete an invoice. Tell us more about the this new UI, and yeah, and show us the use case implemented with JVM workflow.
Sure, of course. So, like Emiliano mentioned, we have two things here to see in the UI. Well, first of all, this is the JVM workflow UI that you will be seeing. On the left, in this processes menu, where we have all the processes that are already deployed in workflow. We may be talking about a complex process like the one that we see on the right, this nice complex diagram, or we can be talking about already pre-packaged subflows. This is something that was mentioned before also. You will get a bunch of pre-packaged subflows to help you connect to JBilling, for example. You don't have to mind about what needs to happen in order, for example, to create a customer. Yeah, you don't need to mind about that. There's going to be a subflow for that. You can see here on the third line, and you just drag and drop it, and that's it. Yeah, a customer is going to get created in JBilling. There is something to consider. Of course, some variables need to be set, need to be on the scope of this process, but that's something else and not a big deal. The most important part is about integrating with JBilling. Yeah, and that's what was mentioned before. You don't have to do that. Yeah? You just use this tool to drag, drop, create your flow, and that's it. Now, talking about this specific diagram, Emiliano was correct. This is the example that he mentioned before, but this is the real deal. Yeah, this is the real thing working, and we're going to see it working actually. Let me explain you a little bit about each step on this flow. The first one here on the top left corner, it's a little circle with an envelope icon inside. That's the beginning of the flow, of the process, but because of the envelope icon, that tells us that this flow can be started from outside of workflow because of an event that happens and is triggered. Yeah? And that's what's going to happen from our sign-up form. Yeah? That's what we're going to do. So this actually describes in the best way possible what we just talked about in the last few minutes. This is something that happens outside of workflow. It's not JBilling, it's not workflow. It can be your application or anything else, any other third-party system that you're using. And whenever something happens, you trigger an event that then is listened by workflow. Then in the next three steps, we are talking to JBilling. We are creating a customer in JBilling and creating a one-time and a monthly order. Yeah, all the information that we will use to do this is going to be filled in the sign-up form. Yeah. Then the next is a really interesting piece of functionality or element that you will find in workflow, which is a choice element. Yeah? You decide which path to choose depending on a condition. In our case, for this scenario, we said, okay, if the customer is created in the corporate account type, we will go this way. And if it is a residential account type, we will go the other way. The corporate account has an extra step, which is we replicate the account in Salesforce. Yeah? That could be because of various business rules and decisions that you may have on your side, but well, we decide in this case, for the sake of the example, to do that if the account type is corporate. It doesn't matter which path we choose, but eventually we end up here in this step that is called perform installation. And you may see the little person icon there on the top left. That's because this is a user task. What does it mean? It means a human interaction is needed. If not, the flow is going to be stopped and stuck there forever. Yeah, so someone needs to go and tell workflow, okay, I completed the task. Just go on with the next steps. Yeah, continue. So this is very, very important from a technical point of view, because this is something that needs to be implemented completely. Yeah, and there are two options. It could be on your system. Yeah, so you will need perhaps a new feature on your side to handle tasks, human tasks, and then eventually when the task is done, you need to send a message or something to JBilling, for example, yeah, to say, hey, I completed. Now, I don't know, activate the orders or do this. Yeah, so it's not a trivial thing to implement those human tasks. Or you could do it in JBilling. It could be something that in JBilling, but either way, you would need a developer dedicated to doing exactly this. Yeah? In workflow, it's just a drag and drop, and that's a human task. Yeah? It has a whole section in the UI or in the system that is to handle tasks. Yeah? And one pretty interesting and important key thing about the human task, this user task, is that they are role oriented. Yeah? They are role specific. So you can configure here in the UI when you drop that task, and you can say this task can only be performed by a manager, by a vice president, by a salesperson, and so on. Yeah? And that aligns very well with perhaps the most usual and common business rules for this type of things. Now, when we complete the installation, the next step, this is just an extra step to get who performed the installation, yeah? Because you're logged in here in workflow and you will go pick the task and complete it, but then we need to know who did that. So this is just a task to do that. The next three and last tasks are to also go back and talk to JBilling and say, hey, now that the installation has been completed, activate both orders, yeah? Make them active so that an invoice can be generated over them, and generate the actual invoice. Okay? And then the process finishes. One thing to mention here, and it's kind of to complete what was just mentioned a few minutes before, is that excluding the perform installation and the get installer's name, the rest of the tasks, 7 tasks, all those are API calls, all integration work. 6 to JBilling. So you will need someone that knows Java so that you can connect to JBilling. Then, for example, Salesforce, if you would need to do something in Salesforce, Salesforce is a PHP application. It's built in PHP, so that is a completely different stack of technologies. In this case, we're talking about 7 different integrations to 2 different systems, and you don't have to do anything. It's all already done for you, and that's the magic of workflow. That's the real important thing about workflow. Now, to move on, we will actually see the demo working now. The first thing, like we said before, is the sign-up form. So I'm going to switch tabs here, and this is the sign-up form. This is just an example sign-up form. The idea here is to represent an external system, external to workflow and external to JBilling. Yeah? I repeat that because it's very, very important that we're not talking about anything related to those 2 other systems. Now, this sign-up form is going to let us gather important information about this new customer that we want to create or sign up. We're going to be retrieving the name, username and password, address information, and so on. The important thing here is that we will choose a phone. This is information taken from JBilling, so these are actual products in JBilling, and we will choose a plan. These are actual plans in JBilling as well. So the logic that we chose for the sake of the example, for the sake of the demo, is that if we choose a corporate plan, then the customer is created under the corporate account type. So we are going to choose that plan so that we see that the account is then replicated into JBilling. So I'm just going to autocomplete all the information here so that we don't lose time with that. So we have a person, a customer that is going to be me, actually. We are going to purchase the Samsung Galaxy S6 and the premium corporate plan. Yeah, we accept the terms and we are going to submit this. But before that, I want to show you that both in JBilling and Salesforce, these accounts do not exist there. Yeah, so you don't think that we're actually cheating. So in JBilling, customers, I refresh the page, there is no customer there. This is my Salesforce account. This is the account that we're actually integrating with. And if we refresh the accounts page, you will see that there is no Juan Vidal here. Yeah. So far, so good. So let me go back to the sign-up form and actually submit the form. Well, this is going to think a little bit, and all the information was submitted. But to where? Actually, to activity. Yeah. So far, you can see that nothing happened in JBilling. This was all sent to activity and nothing else. But because the first 3 steps are automatic, there is no manual intervention in between, these 3 have been executed, and the Salesforce creation as well. How can we see that? How can we know if a flow is actually stopped or paused at some step? There is a section here in workflow called My Instances, and this is going to list all the processes that are actually running but are stopped for some reason. The main reason for those stopped are, of course, a user task that requires a human interaction. We can not only we can see that, but we can also see the path that the flow followed. In this case, we can see that it created a customer in JBilling, both orders, and it actually went through this way because of the corporate account type, and it created the account in Salesforce. Yeah? So before going into the task section and see how we manage user tasks, I'm going to show you how things look so far in JBilling and in Salesforce. If we go to JBilling and refresh the customers screen, you will see that now we have a Juan Vidal customer here. Yeah? And if we go to the orders view, we have 2 orders. The one in the bottom, it's a one-time. You can see it here on the right, a one-time order. But the active scenes is set too far in the future. This is how we chose, so that the order is there, but you would have to wait almost 100 years so that you get an invoice for this. The idea is that very quickly the manual task is completed, and then the active scenes that is going to be changed so that we can actually generate an invoice over this order. There are no lines. Why? Because we created the order changes that are going to contain the phone in this case and the plan in the other order, but they have also an active or an applicable date. That's the right word. An applicable date also set in the future, so that it doesn't appear here. And if we check the monthly order, you will see that we have exactly the same case. Now, if we go to Salesforce and refresh, you will see that now in the list we have the account for Juan Vidal. Yeah? So far everything has been replicated in both systems, and you didn't have to do anything at all in order for those things to happen. They all happen automatically because workflow knows all the steps that need to be executed and in which order. Now, we came to the point that we actually have to go into workflow and do something manually. Yeah. And for that, we go to the tasks section here on the top left menu. And this is a section where you can see all the tasks that are available, the ones that you have assigned to you, and so on. There is a queue here, and it's grouped by roles. In this case, the user that I'm using for the demo, it's a user that belongs to those 4 roles. That's why we see 4 listed there. But if you were a salesperson, you would only see the sales option under the queue. Yeah? So you can actually go and see all the tasks that are available for salespeople, and you can grab them. Yeah? Or if you claim it, it's yours. Or you can actually transfer it to someone else, for example. Or if it is assigned to you, you can reassign it to someone else. Yeah. This is important because it could be that first it has to go to a sales manager, and the sales manager is going to decide which salesperson is going to actually work on the task. So you can say, well, This can be done by a sales manager only. The sales manager grabs the task and reassigns them to the correct person, the person that is idle at the moment. We're going to claim the task, and a very important thing to mention here is that this is not only a task that you have to claim, click on the complete task button, and that's it. It's done. Now, you can also have a form embedded into this task to gather extra information. For example, we could put a text box here and say, well, give us a comment on what happened about the installation. How did it go? Or even we could put a checkbox and say, was the installation completed successfully? Yes. If you don't check it, that means it was not completed successfully, and you could have a comment box and say and put a comment to explain actually what happened that made the installation went unsuccessfully. And then in our flow, we could be checking for that data, to that it was completed successfully or not information, and choose different paths. Send an email to a manager, stop the process there, go back. We could do anything in the flow. So we're going to continue with the scenario, and I'm going to complete the task. What this is going to do, if we go back to processes, this is going to get the person that did the installation and complete the last 3 steps in JBilling. It's going to activate both orders and generate the invoices. So let me go back to JBilling and show you that. If we refresh the orders screen, you will see that now both orders have an amount that was not there before. It was 0. And this is because 2 things. First of all, we applied the order changes, so now we have an order line. Now also we changed the active scenes for the beginning of the month, and you can see that there is an invoice generated for this order. The same thing happened for the monthly one. If we refresh, we have the monthly one here. And a very interesting thing is that we added a note into both orders saying that the installation was completed by and who completed the installation. Very important piece of information, because remember, even though Workflow is a module of JBilling, it's a new tool that will work directly with JBilling. JBilling doesn't know anything about Workflow. So JBilling wouldn't have any way to know who completed the installation. And that was Workflow sending information back to JBilling and saying, hey, this person did it. So there you go. You can put it as a note in the order in this case. And last but not least, if we go to the invoices view, we will see that an invoice was correctly generated for the Samsung Galaxy phone and for the plan for the period of the month of June. So that would be the whole scenario working in real life.
Great, Juan. Thank you very much. That looks truly good. I think that we could see that scenario that I described earlier, which was supposed to be a simple one, right? It's just a couple of lines of requirements. And I think it's the kind of requirement that business people would think as something quite simple. Well, it isn't really simple because it involves, billing and CRM and a manual process as well. But at least it's as simple as possible when you see it in this kind of UI. And it works great. Now, there's a little bit more work to do for us to get to a release version of JBilling Workflow, but it's looking great. Thank you. So I will make myself a presenter again, Juan, and basically that's pretty much all we have for all of you attending this webinar. We'll answer a few questions, so feel free to write questions in the questions sections of the GoToWebinar, and we'll answer them all. Maybe not now, but if we do not answer a question now, what we're gonna do is just get back to you. And if you think of any other questions when after the webinar, just send them over to sales@jbilling.com. So feel free to write this. Write your questions. I have one here Will this be available offline for review later? So we always post our webinars as YouTube videos on the JBeating channel. So you will be able to see this later for sure. Day or two it is what it takes us to upload the video. So no problem there. Um, and there is another question, which is, when do you plan to release JBeating Workflow? That's a tricky question. We do plan to have an official release in basically before the end of the year. That's for sure. It's going to take a little bit of more work to know if that's going to be Q3, which is somewhere around pretty much now in a couple of months, or Q4 of 2015. But as you could see it, we're well advanced, and also we took a massive shortcut as well, which is adopting an open source starting point rather than start from scratch. That really shortens our development process. So we're good. Um, Another question would be, are you planning on other integration with other systems? Sam, do you want to take on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, where we are right now, I mean, as Emiliano mentioned, we're running really hard on this to get this out as quickly as possible. Part of that release cycle is going to be iterating and developing around our current customer base. So we're really interested in gathering, customers that are interested in not only being beta customers, but making sure that we have all of our customer requirements as far as other third-party integrations. So I would say yes. We have a number of integrations that have already been planned, which are around our current customers, and then that list of integrations is just going to continue to expand over time.
Great, thank you, Sam. I'll just entertain one more question, and that one is: do you have any scope for us acting as beta testing group? Well, that's something that we can look into, because JBilling workflow, just like the rest of JBilling, is going to be available as a service. So it's going to be running on our clusters, on our virtual machines, and that means that we can easily make it available to anybody that wants to play with it. And certainly the interested current customers will be welcome to give us some input, or anybody else that wants to give us a hand, just write us, and we can look how to work together. So anyways, if you have any more questions, do send us to sales@jbing.com. I want to thank you, Sam, for your time today. Thank you, Juan, for the presentation. That looks great. And thank you, everybody, for joining us.